Welcome to episode 251 of the Working Fans Podcast, where today, myself and the man called Dave, we are coming off Memorial Day week, and we are here to talk wrestling. But before we talk wrestling, we are going to talk Game Up Hard Hydration. They are our sponsor. They are a new adult hydration drink, low calorie, low carb. Now that summer's hitting, this is the ideal time for them. We've been talking about them all through the summer. Dave, tell them about those four great flavors that everybody loves.
Talking about fruit punch, orange, lemon lime, and Joe's favorite, grape. All right. Get at it. It's low carb, 110 calories. Enjoy that game up, baby.
And Dave, we had a busy week. You caught a little more wrestling than I did, and something you wanted to talk about that I have no clue about, and we are going to kick this show.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Dominic and Liv Morgan. Dave, why was this so important? What did I miss on Monday night?
All right. So it's kind of funny because I missed some of this too because it happened at the very end of Raw, and my feed had cut out because they went a little bit late. So anyway, if you saw the Saudi Arabia show, Dom got involved in the match with Becky Lynch and Liv. And supposedly he was trying to cost Liv the title, and it backfired, and Liv ended up winning the championship. And then we get a cage match on Raw, and here we go again. Dom's going to try to cost Becky. Braun Strowman is chasing Finn Balor and JD McDonough at Judgment Day, and he ends up running into the back of Dom, who then accidentally slams the cage in Becky Lynch's face. Liv Morgan escapes. She gets the win. And then at the very end of it, Dom is looking like, how could this happen? Oh, mommy's going to be so mad. And Liv just plants a big kiss on him. And Dom looks like, I didn't want that. But as we know, everything keeps playing into the fact that these two are actually going to be together. And it looks like, I think Dom and Liv are going to be an item. And maybe there's going to be this split down the middle with Judgment Day, possibly with Dom being with Liv and maybe Finn and JD, and then maybe Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley.
Interesting to see the stories coming out of King and Queen of the Ring going into the Monday night after. What did you think of King of the Ring last week?
I enjoyed it. It was hard for me because I was so busy with the bread that day that I didn't get watch it all in one succession. I saw parts of it here and there. I'm very happy with the booking. I'm happy Gunther ended up being King of the Ring because to me, this adds legitimacy to the King of the Ring. He is the best wrestler out there today, period. Unfortunate, it looks like the ref might have botched the ending. There is no plan for a rematch or anything. It looks like that ref just totally missed it. Randy Orton's shoulder was up. That being said, here we are, man. We booked the world title match now. Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre in Scotland. And after that, we have Money in the Bank in Canada, SummerSlam in Cleveland, and then we're off to Germany. So I got to feel that Gunther's going to be getting a world. Well, actually, Gunther's now got a world title shot for SummerSlam, too. So,
yeah.
And I would think he's going to be, maybe he's going to be walking into Germany as world champ.
That would be something, or maybe the loss at SummerSlam, the rematch in Germany, because you got to feel like they want to do, much like we anticipate Drew winning the title in Scotland, those, those home country wins.
Sure. Although you never know what CM Punk is going to be doing too. So there's a lot of what ifs, and Drew does seem to find himself in this role of being the guy, heel or face, who gets cheated out of his opportunities.
100%. Now, that wasn't the only pay-per-view this weekend. Sunday night also brought us, and talk about shows running long.
Yes.
Double or Nothing, and the biggest story, one of the biggest stories to come out of Double or Nothing is the return of MJF. And At least for the TikTok lives that I do, there's a lot of excitement for AEW again now that MJF is back. I think they've needed him. I'm very excited to see what he does. How are you feeling about the return, and what do you think we can expect from his return?
Biggest thing going. He's the biggest thing going right now for that company. No matter what, no matter you got your Will Ospreay, you got your Okada, all great wrestlers, all killing it right now. But there's something about the way MJF portrays himself, everything he does, it just ends up having the biggest buzz. And he knows how to push that envelope, step over that line without necessarily getting himself in trouble, but getting people talking. You know, I did get a kick out of the Triple H denim style jacket that I thought immediately when he came out. I'm like, oh, that's, 2000, 2001 Triple H right there. And I think one of our friends who was hanging out was telling one of the chats he's involved. Somebody said, well, look, it's a beautiful day, which is a throwback to that U2 song that Triple H came out to a million different times. But yeah, good to see MJF back.
And it's wild to see the tattoo on his leg because so
Yeah,
much of the talk has been, when is MJF going to go to WWE? MJF, up until this point, hyped that he was going to be going to WWE, that there was going to be a competition for him to go there. And now it seems like he has solidified himself as AEW's guy, which, I mean, AEW really needed.
yeah.
I don't know. What do you make of that? Do you think there was ever any doubt that he was going to leave, or was it just something that was played up to get people talking?
I think it was played up to get people talking. I think he was definitely planning on staying at the time, given the landscape. Um, and I think now that the landscape has changed, even if he was considering it, I think he's betting on himself right now in AEW. Now, does this mean he'll never go to WWE? Never say never. And by the way, does this mean Cody Rhodes is never going back to AEW? Never say never. I think we're in a different time period in pro wrestling where you may see people come and go and switch different brands. And man, I think one day, whether it's an AEW or WWE, is there going to be a bigger world title match than MJF and Cody Rhodes? When those two get together in the same promotion.
That would be wild to see. Now, talking about the pay-per-view, what were some of the standout matches for you? I made it up until the last 4 matches. Haven't gone back and finished it. There were some big moves on there. You're really solidifying a lot of your new hires. Mercedes got a title. Will Ospreay got a title. What were your opinions of the pay-per-view? I enjoyed it. I thought that match they kicked it off with was a great way to start it.
Too long, but good show. It's so long. I wish I had watched it like you did. If I would have been able to avoid spoilers and then watch it the next day, it probably would have been a better viewing for me. Sitting through the whole thing is just tough for me at that time. But nonetheless, I mean, still a good show. That Mercedes Willow match was excellent. They delivered big. Felt bad for Adam Copeland. I knew something was wrong right away. When you jump off the cage like that and you land straight down with your legs and knees like that, I haven't heard anyone say this, but it really gave me Jim Cornette vibes from the scaffold match all them years ago when he landed.
Oh yeah, it fell straight down.
Yeah, and I was like, that can't be good. But Copeland, adrenaline, whatever, did not show any ill effects until that very end, once the match was done. And I almost thought he was doing it personally, trying to get through it just for Gangrel, so Gangrel could have his moment, But yeah, unfortunate for him. That definitely stuck out though. Mercedes, the Statlander and Stokely turn. We saw that coming, I think, but that stuck out. Jack Perry pinning Bryan Danielson, even though in a tag match, I thought that was a real solidification. Like, we're trying to really put this guy over as a heel. And of course, they tried to put the TNT championship on him and storyline. And then Christopher Daniels in his new role came out on Dynamite this week and says we're going to have qualification matches leading to a ladder match. It was a good show, a good pay-per-view, and then a good follow-up on Dynamite. I think AEW does have some momentum right now. It's good to see. I haven't seen the ratings or anything, but at least creatively, they have some good momentum going right now.
Yeah, AEW could really kill it if they cut like a good 2.5 hours off their pay-per-views. They have such a stacked roster. They put together great matches, but it's literally a marathon. Like when I left, I knew it was going to be a late night. I didn't know it was going to go later than I even thought.
Yeah.
But they've got to get that pacing under control because that's like the one consistent knock they get on their pay-per-views. And we're leading up to Forbidden Door, which is their pay-per-view in conjunction with New Japan. It looks like I missed Dynamite this week, but it looks like we're setting up for Ospreay and Strickland.
Yep, Osprey Strickland. Also there was a young lady, I'm blanking out her name, but she wrestles in New Japan and she is the CMLL Women's Champion. She showed up after
Stephanie
Mercedes.
Vacour or something like
Yes.
that.
She showed up after she showed up after Mercedes went. So it looks like we're setting up a match between her and Mercedes for
I like seeing that. Forbidden Door is one of those great crossover pay-per-views that they're doing between companies. And NXT, I did catch this week. I caught one of two major surprises,
Yes.
but talking the crossover in wrestling, I
Yeah.
loved seeing Jordynne Grace announced for that women's match at the UFC Apex.
Sure.
And I did not finish the show because I was tired. And when I woke up the next day seeing that Ethan Page debuted there, this was a wild week for NXT. Did you catch this or did you just catch the news of it afterwards?
No, similar to you. I was we have a group chat that sometimes gets a little spoily, and somebody said holy shit, and I was like, I was getting ready to go to bed. I'm like, because I was tired. I was like, I want to watch this a little more. And so we got to the point in the next segment, and I didn't know what happened. And they were announcing Roxanne Perez's opponent. And I'm like, oh, wow. So me being the content creator I am, I immediately posted breaking news. Jordynne Grace showed up on NXT, title match. And I'm very fascinated by that. We'll talk about that just a little bit more in a second here. And as far as Ethan Page goes, I did end up going to bed thinking I'd probably seen it all. And our chat did spoil, but I actually didn't look at the chat. I woke up the next day and just logged onto our YouTube. And of course, there's a picture on one of the channels I follow of Ethan Page. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I went back and I watched that. And I was like, oh, wow. So it was a big night for NXT. In particular, even though we closed with Ethan Page, and I'm excited with Ethan Page, this Jordynne Grace thing has me very much more intrigued. I should have done the due diligence, but I thought Jordynne Grace's contract was coming up soon too. And I don't know if she had signed or not signed, and she's the current Knockouts champion. So I find that fascinating because everybody, I think, is assuming that she's probably not going to win here. But God, they loved her so much in the Rumble. I mean, you could have her win. You could have the knockout title vacated. And people might think, well, TNA, why would you do that? Why would you have Jordynne Grace win and then show up with the title? And I'll tell you why, because it's way more of an audience than you would ever get to tune into your show, and you're just proving you have a great relationship with WWE and Jordynne Grace and your talent. And after Scott D'Amore left, you could probably use a little publicity like that too. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But, man, I would not be opposed to Jordynne Grace winning this title and shocking everybody and having Roxanne Perez go up to the main roster.
I don't know how this is going to play out, but this has me excited for, beyond this match because I see Ethan Page debut later in the night. And my next thought is, do we get a reunited North maybe wrestling in NXT? Do you get Dolph Ziggler and Mustafa Ali possibly being able to come back and wrestle WWE stars in a backdoor type method? So I'm excited for the possibility of things when you get two big stars like this. Now, obviously, Ethan Page signed to NXT, but with the crossover of working, I just think there's so many possibilities. And that's why I would say it's show of the week, but it's also the show that I got to see the most of this week.
Yeah. Best news of the week. But yeah, it was most surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it was right up there. Like MJF returning was big, but that's
Yeah.
somebody that's on the roster. That's somebody
You
you
expect it,
expected
right.
to come back. It popped the news big. Jordynne Grace, it was cool to see, but I like it not necessarily a surprise. Ethan Page came out of nowhere, and I felt like it almost raised Ethan Page's stock a little bit because he's a good wrestler, but he
Sure.
consistently falls in that middle area where he never gets too big, but yet he never like shrinks away from the spotlight. And Dave, you've been doing these great choose one or another bits on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok for a while. And this week I had to go and pick former Shield members. Who's better in ring, Jon Moxley or Seth Rollins? And this is interesting because both great wrestlers, both at the top of their companies, but better in ring. That
Better
is
in
a
ring.
different question.
Yeah.
And I feel, as much as I hate to say it, I feel like it's hands down Rollins.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you mean by that. A lot of people love Seth, and I think me and you are kind of the same. I've really grown to respect Seth and the character over the last year, but it's not my cup of tea necessarily. The costumes and the laughter and the blah blah. But here's the thing, and we're talking in ring. Seth is such a good wrestler that I think we look past it. We're like, this fucking guy, but God damn, is he good in the ring? And that's not a slight on Mox. It's just that, man, when Seth is competing in the ring, bell to bell, very few better. We're talking AJ Styles, you talking Dale. There's really few. Like, so it's like Seth is just like right below those guys. And then I'd have Mox just a little bit further down, maybe with another group of very talented wrestlers like a Cody Rhodes, where they're going to go. But yeah, there's just something about bell to bell Seth. Now, character wise, not against Seth, but I'm more of a Mox guy,
Oh, 100%. I like Mox's attitude, the whole aesthetic he comes through. His matches tend to be a little brawly. He has done the blood sport, so we're not taking that away from him. He does practice jujitsu. But when you talk about that in-ring smoothness, it's Seth Rollins. And for anybody that hasn't checked out our interview with Perfection Pro Wrestler, listen to Perfection talk about training with Seth Rollins and how Seth Rollins approaches running his school. And I think that shows you a different degree of wrestler and shows you more where the in-ring is. Now, this is nothing against, like, big fans of both wrestlers, but when you get to pure like in-ring talent, you got to kind of give it to Seth.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, I think bell to bell, Seth Rollins is just that guy.
100%. And Dave, I'm going to introduce a new segment that I am hoping to end our shows with because a while ago, beginning of this year, I wanted to start a new podcast. I did 4 episodes of Magazine Mania podcast where I bought a lot of old wrestling magazines and I wanted to cover them, cover to cover. It didn't necessarily work out, but I got a lot of fucking wrestling magazines now. And I had this idea to go back and look at the letters from some old magazines and kind of see where wrestling fandom was then and see kind of what we think in retrospect. Now, looking at this cover, you got the results of their nationwide poll are in wrestling sexiest superstar. And in winter of 1984, it's between Billy Jack Haynes, not between, but these are who they put on the cover: Billy Jack Haynes, Hulk Hogan, Rick Martel, Kevin Von Erich, and Tommy Rich. And what the fuck?
I wanted to make sure that was Kevin because it looked like Kevin to me. But the picture, he has such a baby face, it was so small. I was like, is that Mike? Mike, looking sharp.
Yeah, either way, he doesn't look well. But that's not what we're covering from this. We are going into the fan forum.
Say something about
And
fired up.
Dave, I'm just going to read a few letters and we're going to get into it. So, first letter is Jealous Patera. I was reading Ken Patera's incredible story, Barry Windham will force his father out of wrestling, in the fall issue of Wrestling Superstars. Is Patera a nut? He says that Windham influences his father, Blackjack Mulligan, to wrestle scientifically, and that is ruining Blackjack's career. To put it simply, this is a crock of bull. What's wrong with Patera? Did he get knocked too hard in the head during his match against Windham? Or is he just jealous of the publicity and success Barry enjoys? Personally, I think Patera was trying to make people forget that he couldn't beat Windham, so he simply made up some outrageous story. I think it's about time for an action gallery feature on Barry, and if you could, make sure Patera gets a copy.
Oh,
Don Gosnell, Lantana, Florida.
so so I don't know if that was a kayfabe comment or if that was the fan base back then too. So they would have totally been into it. But interesting enough that 84 Wyndham should be going to the WWF shortly, but at that point, I guess he wasn't. He was still in Florida.
Yeah, and it's funny that they're thinking that somehow Barry Windham is influencing how Blackjack Mulligan wrestles. And there must have been, I'm not super familiar with the time frame, so off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you about the feuds, but there must have been some kind of Patera feud too. And I just love reading it from the time, because whether it's kayfabe, whether it's somebody, or whether it's like an actual fan that thought that, just the wild fan theories over the years don't change.
Original WrestleMania was in 1981, which was been 85. Wyndham and Rotundo lost the belts, so they had to be in, I would imagine, sometime in 84, but I don't know when. But interesting.
Wasn't the original WrestleMania in like 84 or 85?
It was 85, and this was 84, you said, the magazine.
Yep.
So Wyndham and Rotundo, and that's March in 85. They're losing that tag title, April of 85. So Wyndham had to debut at some point in 84.
Yeah, this is winter of 84. So, I mean, you could even say it probably came out late summer, early fall, just to give you the time frame.
So,
what's that?
Those magazines were usually a little behind too. So if it said winter, you might be getting like September, you know what I mean? So they were always a couple months behind.
Yeah, for instance, I just got the newest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's the August 2024 issue.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right. So we're moving on from Jealous Patera to Garvin the Greatest. Thank you for your interview with Ronnie Garvin in the last issue of Wrestling Superstars, fall of 84. It's about time that Hands of Stone got the attention and publicity he deserves. The one thing I don't understand is now that Garvin is finally getting some recognition as a great singles wrestler, he decided to go into tag team wrestling with Jerry Oates as his partner. He spent all those years trying to get some attention for his own abilities. Why go into tag teams now? He's a great singles wrestler capable of winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Ronnie, if you're reading this, go for the world title. You know you want it. After all, it's every wrestler's dream. Sandy Franklin, Columbus, Georgia.
A couple years later, he would have that world title.
And Jerry Oates coming up. It was Jerry Oates, I believe, that trained Randy Hogan.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or was that Ted Oates? Was it Ted and Jerry Oates? Am I getting these names confused?
Oh, I don't know. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. There was a Ted Oates as well. I don't know.
All right, next letter coming up. Sullivan headed for a fall. Kevin Sullivan's days of Satan worshiping are just about over. I feel with the addition of One Man Gang to Dusty Rhodes' family, Sullivan will soon be experiencing his last days in professional wrestling. I understand that first OMG One Man Gang has a score to settle with Sir Oliver Humperdinck and Superstar Graham, but after that, I'm sure he'll want to help Dusty, Blackjack Mulligan, and Billy Jack, rid Florida of Sullivan. The gang is just the right ingredient. Continued on page 50. The family needed. He's big, powerful, and angry. If he can manage to direct some of that anger towards Sullivan, the Prince of Darkness will turn into the Frog of Wrestling. Congratulations, One Man Gang, for figuring out the right road to take in professional wrestling, and good luck in the future. Hillary Kebler, Tampa, Florida.
A few years later, Akeem, the African Dream.
And it's wild that the amount of Florida wrestling that's getting talked in this time, because you got to think, especially when I lived, a lot of my wrestling was WWF, WCW. You heard of other territories, but you didn't see it. And this is at a time when Championship from Florida, it sounds like, was arguably almost at its biggest. And I love going back and watching those old angles, and you could see it's getting people fired up. And if I may note, 2 of the letters written by females. I don't know if you'd see that as much in current wrestling magazines.
No, I always take notice too when we have female fans. It catches me off guard still.
Yeah, because it's like you think mainly of male wrestling fans, but we found it on TikTok is that ladies enjoy pro wrestling too. And I mean, maybe it's given the, I don't want to say creepiness of the business, but there is an underbelly that always hasn't been fair to female wrestlers or female fans. So that's why I think it's at least new to us. Now, Dave, I'm feeling how long this mailbag segment is going. So I'm going to go one more letter because you're going to see why in a minute. Anti-Kamala. I turned on my TV set the other day to watch WWF wrestling and saw the ugliest sight I have ever seen in my life. I have seen some photos of Kamala in your magazines, but after watching this fat slob move around the ring, he looked more disgusting than ever. I thought at least he could wrestle, but after watching the match, I came to the conclusion that he can't do that either. His only effective wrestling maneuver is the big splash move he uses to end matches. Otherwise, he uses illegal chops to the throat and closed fist punches to weaken his opponents. I think the only reason he's been so successful is that he's so big and that no one can get a wrestling hold on him. And who is this Friday character who comes to the ring with him? It's bad enough we have to see Freddie Blassie every week on TV. Now we have to watch this guy Friday stumble around the ring as well. Kamala is a waste of my time. I'd rather watch a good, athletic, white wrestler. Paul Kobuzzi, Elmsford, New Jersey. He didn't say white wrestler. I said what I feel like he was thinking, because it felt like there were undertones to that letter.
Very possible, very possible. He was definitely, at the very least, fat shaming that man. There's no doubt about that.
Definitely. And it's funny how, God, you look back on Kamala, and I wouldn't say he was the most athletic wrestler, but I never would have thought to write a negative letter about him because he was such an imposing force.
Sure.
He had that kind of scary vibe to him where you thought something could really happen. And I will tell you what there are no undertones to, and that is our love of Game Up Hard Hydration.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store.
And like we said, summertime is here. Perfect time to throw an 8-pack of Game Up in your cooler, go to the beach, go to the game, and enjoy it. But, you know, you might be going to Little League games. You might need a book to read while you're there. And I've got one I can recommend.
All you goddamn wrestling fans out there, listen, old black Bart has got a book. It's called Wrestle platform. It's got some dadgum good stories in there about some dadgum good wrestlers.
Read stories of Dusty Rhodes, the Von Erich, Scott Casey, Sergeant Slaughter, Roddy Piper, Mr. Fuji, Ron Bass, Bruiser Brody, Mike Davis, the Grappler, and many others.
And I guarantee you one thing, that it'll be the best dadgum read you've had in a long, long time.
Get your book today at Russellville.com or on Amazon. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.